Hello, 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 and welcome to another dizzying one line of code. I'm one lion, and this person needs to sit still. I like the rain out of the window and everything, but you're moving way too much. This is from July of 2024 in Gurgaon, Mumbai, India. I don't know how to pronounce it. But we're getting off the scene. It's dizzying. Me and my mouse back. All right, to the desktop. So I'm running into something really weird suddenly. I've been working on this, of course, throughout yesterday and this morning. And I just pushed on the computer that I was working on, and I pulled on this computer from the right repository, from the right branch. Good later morning. Hi, DVD. What time are you leaving? Unless you've already left and you're just watching on your mobile. Scooch. Dismiss that. So this component here, I have renamed to Field Mapper Editor. And, oh, Field Mapper Dialog. Okay, I see what happened. I changed it in one place, but I didn't change it in the other. That's what I'm in the middle of doing. So 2 p.m., gonna head out. Flight is at 5:30. Okay, so you're heading out in about, I can't maths, an hour and a half, which probably means a little earlier than that. 2 hours and a half? 2 hours and a half. It's 11:30 for you. 2.5 hours. I got this. I got time. I know how to do time. So I renamed Field Mapper Content to Field Mapper Editor. And this was after doing all of the importing from the original placeholder component library that I was writing for the data import utility class library. And what I was in the process of doing was, for those original components that I made that were, again, placeholders, I was pulling them into this solution. So I deleted them all, and then I was pulling them in one by one to make sure that they were doing what I wanted them to do in the way that I wanted them to do it, structured in a way that I wanted them to be structured. I probably need to prefix these classes now that I'm looking at it. Okay, and at the same time as making sure that they were structured the way that I wanted them to be structured and that they did what I wanted them to do, I was also trying to decouple them from requiring a state. Plus, I turned the state into an interface instead of just the state itself, so that if the developer wanted to create their own state, then they would know what properties they needed to implement and events and stuff like that, so that they can control the state themselves. There is a default data field mapper state. So there's this one. There is the base class for that, file reader. Wait, file read state? Am I even using that? I think I need to delete that. Import data request, extensions. Where's my other base class? I think that's everything. Hello, Dukasoft. Am I using file read state? 8 references. In the data field mapper state, my data field mapper state implementation requires a file read state. Which is an enum. Oh dear. I read TBD's messages. Fight is at 5:30. Shout out for TBD. Thank you so much for that. He's an amazing .NET developer. Right now he's going through a small medical situation that he needs to get taken care of, but he is still going strong with his efforts to get the APIs published for his application that he's been working on stream. And I think not just the APIs, but he's really wanting to get this Docker image Kubernetes situation all sorted out using Pulumi and all the other technologies, all the other amazing technologies he uses. Not in fighting form, sadly, he says. Although he has a much deeper voice than me, so I can't really do a TBD impression. 24 hours from now, I might be in a spacey mood after a planning meeting. Oh, spicy mood. I thought you were gonna... Yeah, okay. Spicy mood after a planning meeting. We'll tell them to put it off until Friday. Have the meeting just before Community Day, so you have somewhere that you can bring your spicy mood to and feel safe doing it. And stuff. Okay, so what did I do since Monday's stream? Monday, I talked about really wanting to redo the way that the library has the 2 dictionaries that I was using in that import data file. And so I ended up doing that yesterday. If you recall, in the imported data file, I had a dictionary of string, where that string is the table name, and that table name must be a valid table name from the data set, one of the data table's names. And it was a dictionary of string, comma, list of either the imported record field descriptors. I need to update this description while I'm here. As well as the list of field mappings for each of the tables by table name in another dictionary. So 2 separate properties that both had a table name as the key and a list of either the fields that are for that table turned into my custom C# class. So data tables have columns, and those columns have properties and stuff. Gosh, and now I'm wanting to just use the data columns only. But the thing that I added into this imported record field descriptor is the imported data file that it's for, and the list of values for that column from the data table that it is for. So anyway, instead of having 2 dictionaries that both are pointing back to essentially the same source, I created one import table definition class, and that class has the table name and the list of imported record field descriptors and list of field mappings. Created a couple of overloads so that I could still use it in a dictionary-like way, where we could try to get the table definition by table name, and it would be the same as try get value, except that we are getting back the table definition by table name from a list of table definitions. Same thing with getting just the field descriptors back and just the field mappings back by table name. And try add, I had that in here so that if it exists, if that table name already has a table definition, then we were unsuccessful at adding the list of imported record field descriptors. Otherwise, we do try to add it to the list of table definitions. And finally, a contains table, which is pretty much the same as contains key. The thing that I'm really looking forward to in C# 13 apparently is being able to create an extension indexer. They were talking about that on .NET Conf yesterday, Mads Torgerson and the dude that he's always with. Sorry, dude, that I can't remember your name. You're amazing, though. But they were talking about being able to extension everything, and so creating an indexer extension on this list of import table definition I would want to do, because the indexer would be the table name and I would match on table name property. I could currently do that by creating a import table definition collection class and then having that so public class import table definition collection, which would be a list of import table definition. And I could have a public table definition indexer with string table name. It's something like this. I really don't know the syntax, but essentially creating the indexer in this file. They spent a ton of time waffling on params, then covered stuff coming next time around, but not in this version. Yeah, it seemed like a lot of the stuff they had planned for this version just didn't get into the C# 12 release. Like another one that I was looking forward to without needing to turn on the preview flag is being able to access field inside of an auto property without breaking the auto property, only having a definition for either the getter or the setter, and then you get the backing field for free, or access to the backing field for free. But I think you have to turn on the preview features flag for that. Dukesoft says, biggest thing for me so far is speed improvements. Awesome, but boring. It's like, it's super impressive that you guys can keep finding ways to make it more efficient, to make it more faster, more better. And it's just really boring to hear about. I agree. Dustin is his name. I was so disappointed in Mads and Dustin yesterday. Was the first comment, and then they spent a bunch of time waffling. Ready for Rush Sharp? Only if it's fun to code in. Yes. Only if I don't have to learn an entirely new syntax. Otherwise, no, I couldn't care less about a Rust Sharp. Okay, so I told you about what I did to the library. I am updating a comment, the table definitions for the data. Marks, this represents the fields that are in the data, as well as the column, the mappings to a target type. Now here's something that I am kind of stuck on. It's updated when set data. Yeah, this is still true. but I don't think that this is public. Oh, it is public. Interesting. I need to tie, or to couple, I guess, the list of field mappings to a target type, because the list of field mappings is based on the destination fields that you are mapping to. So it's almost like I need this entire chain to only be a typed chain. The reason that I didn't want to make it generic all the way down is to give the opportunity to change the target type at runtime. So let's say you have a drop-down list of target types and you want to pick it from a list, and then you do set target type here, passing in the type as a parameter, then it generates all of the field mappings for that target type. But yes, hello, Foolish Snobble. I'll only be half paying attention to today's .NET Conf. It seems like there's going to be a lot of Aspire stuff, which is cool. It's good information, but I'm not in a position where I'm using it currently, or needing to use it, I should say. So it'll be information that I either learn by osmosis or pick up when I need it. But at least I'll be exposed to it. Okay, so that's how the library changed. I'm still writing the comments for this. Am I? No, I'm not. I'm good. Okay. Let me do a mini commit for those. Right, and I also wanted to add the triad field mappings. Oh, this really was triad. Which is essentially adding a new table definition with this is essentially .add new field definition, table name equals, field descriptors equals, field mappings equals. Okay, my bad. You are fine. You don't actually have changes. Unstage, restage, but there were changes still, apparently. What changes? Extra. White space changes for the win. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we didn't rename the triad method. We updated the XML documentation. That's all we did. Okay, so now what are we doing? As I mentioned at the end of Monday's stream, I talked about starting to pull the component library back in little by little, and I did that throughout yesterday and this morning, and I am almost completely done with it. It is structured better, in my opinion, as far as the HTML that will get generated, and the way that I am using the mapper state inside of each of these components is now, it's an optional thing except for when you are using the data file mapper. The data file mapper is kind of like the overarching control that you would use to put everything in your app at once, as far as the UI is concerned, for being able to pick a file, have it be read using the Excel data reader or whatever data reader you provide, as long as it gives us back a data set. And what else? Oh yeah, and then it displays the data set, hooks up all of the handlers for it so that whenever the data changes, it'll tell the parent component, or it'll use the data file mapper state. So this, again, this data file mapper state, it is required on this component, but it's not required for you to provide it as the developer. You don't have to wrap the data file mapper in a cascading value data file mapper state. It will create one, even though here it kind of looks like this is going to be not nullable. So that means you must provide it. But at the same time, on initialize is when I'm saying, actually, it is nullable. And if you don't provide it, it'll create one internally, hook up everything that it needs to hook up. Wait, why do you have a register self? You should always register yourself because you will always have data file mapper state. I don't know. I'll figure out more what I intended with that. I think if the developer creates their own implementation of the data file mapper state, they might not want this component to register itself. Like if they used a ref instead. What are they called? Param ref? This thing. Component reference. Okay, then the other thing that I did is, instead of having an entire wrapper structure, which kind of isolated every single one of these components, I have them so that only some of them wrap their own content. So for example, the data file picker component, which does have the labeled information about the file that was selected, whether or not it has headers. That's all wrapped in one div, but that made sense for a file picker component. This really is the one element that this component represents. But the data set, for example, has the section for choosing which data table from that data set, if there's more than one data table, to display, as well as the data table display itself. Both of those elements used to be wrapped in an overarching wrapper. You would have to style that wrapper individually, but here I'm just giving you the elements in line with each other so that you can choose how you want to style it in the long run. I had to do this because for whatever reason, even though the parameters for override header row and override data row are optional, or are nullable, I said optional, are nullable, when I'm assigning them to a nullable version, then they get green squigglies. I said they get green squigglies. And it says possible null reference assignment, and it's like, yes, true. But this is nullable, so that should be allowed. So I'm like, just suppress that because I'm tired of seeing it. And then I had to put curly braces around it for whatever reason, because when I had it like this, it didn't actually apply. And then if I did this to change it into C#, or to Razor, then it was angry at that. And I'm like, but this is not right. This is so not right. So anyway, point is, I went through a whole bunch of combinations for this, and this is how I found out. how to get rid of all of the warnings that weren't really true warnings. And yeah, it was just for my sanity. What else? Is there anything else that's very interesting? Oh yeah. Okay, so as I mentioned, each of these components I was intending to be isolated components that could be used by themselves. You don't need to use the parent data file mapper component, because if you wanted, you could set your UI up however you wanted to by piecing all of these components together. Let's say you only wanted the data file picker component, period, from this entire library and the functionality that came with it. Then you can do that simply by using the data file picker component directly. If you don't specify the cascading parameter data file mapper state, it just doesn't use it. So if it's not null, then it'll register itself if register self to state is turned on. But for every time that a new file is selected, if the data file mapper state was provided at some point, either through a parent component or by the developer themselves, then it would change. Show transform preview. Oh, it would set the show transform preview to false when you're changing files, for example. So let's say you're already working on a field mapping, it's loaded, you're showing the preview of what the transform data looks like, but then you change the file. That field mapping might no longer apply, so hide the preview as you're changing the file and then indicate the file was picked. Then the developer can be like, okay, now you can show the preview again, but it doesn't show automatically again, but it does automatically hide every time. I got rid of all of the if on file request change. So all of these are event callbacks. So I was doing a has delegate check on all of my event callbacks before invoking them. Otherwise, returning task dot completed task. That was hard to think about. So I got rid of all of that. Instead, it's just invoke async. I did some tests prompted by SCOD for this, and it has not errored even if I never registered an event callback to this. What else? Data set display, same thing with the data file mapper. If one is specified, it uses that. If one is not specified, then I am requiring that the developer provide a data set to the data set display. Because if there is no data set in this data set display, it will default to trying to get the data set from the data file mapper state. And if it can't get that, oh, it doesn't error. It used to error. It used to be use dataset non-nullable is the dataset that the developer provided on this component directly. If that's null, the dataset from the mapper state. And if that's null, then throw a new argument exception or parameter exception or whatever it was that says either the dataset or the data file mapper state is required. However, what I realized is you could be using this component and displaying it, so the dataset display itself, you could be using it and displaying it, but not have loaded a file yet. So the use dataset is now nullable. It's just if it's null, then we don't display anything for this component. Yeah, and I don't like this. What I'm gonna do instead is if is not null. I'm really just not going to show anything at all. Whoa, Scott Hunter. That was loud. So if there is a data set, then we can potentially show a data table. And that's when we'll say when there are no data tables, there is no data table. But not when the data set is also null. Okay, I like that. Data table display, same thing with the mapper state. Great Scott, one of the great Scots. Okay, data table display is going to be a thing. Hello, Emporium guy. I was lurking in your stream earlier. I wasn't really listening or paying attention, but I was there giving you support in spirit. Emporium guy is working on some Blazor stuff. I saw you working with Mud Blazor and trying to figure out a component, why a component was giving you an error. I hope you're able to figure that out. Yes, went to get dinner. We'll start another stream later. Awesome. Awesome. Well, if you are streaming in about 2 hours, which is when I'm going to end my stream, then I will head on over to your stream. We'll raid you. No pressure though. If you aren't, then I'm sure we can find someone else to raid. But I have a meeting at 12:30 with our AWS handler, who will hopefully help help me with determining a better approach to how we're utilizing our cloud resources. Because again, we're using EC2 instances for everything, for file storage, for IIS, for database servers, for ArcGIS server, and DT Search, which DT Search is an indexing application service thing that runs as a service. Also RabbitMQ for the DT Search, because I use RabbitMQ to store jobs whenever there is an index requested, an index process requested. So imagine a user is using a document management application. They upload a PDF that's some odd 100 megs, and it's already been OCR'd, but we need to get the PDF content searchable. So create a database record, upload the file. The database record says where that file is. Send queue up a message in RabbitMQ, and when the service runs, it'll pick it up and start indexing that any files that have been marked as needs indexing. So it's not like it runs on every request. I don't think it runs on a timed basis. So you might be in the middle of uploading multiple files, and so it'll have an index job queued up for every single upload file, but it might not run the first job even for 5 minutes, and then it'll clear the message queue because run the first job, clears all of the ones that need indexing, does the indexing and clears them, and then runs the rest of the jobs just to clear it out, make sure there are none in the queue, no other items needs indexing until the next run after that. So anyway, it's going to be fun finding out if AWS has suggestions for us how to re-architect our cloud usage. Okay, and then again, the reason that I do go over all of this stuff on stream is mostly for my own benefit, that I can actually see that the process that I'm pursuing, the approach that I'm taking, is worth following, is worth doing. Thank you, Venus Theory. Venus Theory is awesome. He's creating instruments and putting them out there for free. It is insane. I'm definitely going to want to grab that one. Okay. So data table display, again, a component that can be used inside of this entire process with a data file mapper state, or individually just to display a data table. Let's say the only things you wanted from this library are the ability to display a data set. or the ability to pick a file and display the data set. You don't want to map it to a C# class or anything. So you use a combination of the data file picker and the data set display, or just the data table display by itself. And you can do that. You can absolutely do that. Manage the entire thing by yourself, or use them together, passing down a data file mapper state and letting them do their internal processes, which is when you pick a file from the data file picker that tells the state that I've picked a file. The state will then use any injected file reader to turn it into a data set and then feed that data set into the data set display. And then the data set display will display all of the data tables that are available. Pick one from a drop-down list, and then it'll display it in a data table. And that's the customizability that I really wanted to achieve with this component library. Okay, then we have, oh, you are an enum. We have two different ways to display the field mapper components. So all of the data reader stuff, beautiful, love them, solid. I'm thinking I'm done with them. I shouldn't have to modify them anymore. The field mapping process. So this is the other part of the library that is providing the UI for the functionality to map from your imported file to a target type, C# type. And so that's what I'm in the middle of, or I guess close to the end of, because I did the majority of the work. This is comprised of, let's start with this field mapper wrapper base, just because I wanted to say it that way. There are two ways to show, actually there are three ways, I should say. There are three ways to show the field mapper editor. And the field mapper editor is that thing that you saw me keep showing on the right side that had, here's the list of fields that you can map to. Here are some drop-down boxes and options for you to choose where to get the data for that field from. So the field mapper wrapper base is the initial component. Yeah, nice, Emporium guy. So I will say, first of all, I'll read what Emporium guy said. He said, and now I kind of understand why you write your own shared components throughout your projects that you can use throughout the rest of your projects. Yeah. Because I initially started with Blazor when it was first coming out. So very little information about Blazor out there. I tried asking questions in forums on the Gitter. Is that what it's called? The chat thingy for GitHub. I got berated a lot for the questions that I asked, and I was like, I'm just not going to ever ask questions again in a public forum. And it was around that time that I started streaming too, so it was pretty rough on me as far as my self-confidence in being able to figure out problems. So anyway, I was like, I can't figure out components. It's hard for me to grasp the concepts. Dan Roth was doing a great job of describing them and showing how to use them, but they were just like completely beyond me still for such a long time. So I was like, I'm just gonna see if there's something like a CSS library out there for components. And sure enough, there was. There was Syncfusion already creating components. And the other one that I was using at the time was DevExpress. And those were the two major vendors that had components. And as I was trying to use them, I'm like, okay, how do I customize this for my needs? And I was struggling with that. And I'm like, I'm reading the docs and I just don't understand it. I don't get it. If you couldn't tell, it takes me a bit to grasp a concept, but once I do, I got it. But I couldn't understand it, couldn't figure out how to customize the things, couldn't style them, and it's much like the reason that I didn't use a CSS library from the beginning, because I had trouble customizing it through CSS. So I've always rolled my own CSS, and I've always, or not always, but after having that experience with using a third-party Blazor component library, I was like, I just need to learn how to make components myself. So I started piecing that together, started learning how to make components, and I'm like, I really enjoy this a lot. But I want to make components that are usable by more than just myself. So when I created my component library, they really were just like, I have a need for this, and I'm going to put it together the way that I understand how to put it together and need it. But I'm also going to make it available to anyone that might want to improve on it or might want to use it as samples for how to build their own components, because again, there was so little actual code out there for creating components. It was like everyone wanted to keep their cards close to their chest, because I'm looking at the card component, keep their cards close to their chest and not reveal anything to anyone, because if everyone can make their own component, no one's going to buy their components. And I'm a fan of freely giving information and sharing with everyone. But again, I'm not at a position where my components are so great that I would be making millions or billions off of it and whatever. And even if that was the case, I'd like to think that I couldn't care less about that. But anyway, point is, I started creating my own components, put them in the library, put them out there. I'm using these actively in my work product. Yeah. And this library specifically, though, has not been updated for 3 years. 2 to 3 years. 2 to 4 years. Yeah, let's just go with 2 years. It's been a couple years since I've updated this library. So I've learned a lot since then. And I do want to republish these components in a cleaner way when I get the opportunity. But the point is that there are a lot more open source component libraries out there, people doing them cleanly, and there are plenty of examples, so there isn't an immediate need for me to do any kind of updates to this, and people just seem a lot more willing to help each other out lately. And spread information. Good information, not just crap information. Okay, all right. How is that? So Emporium guy was like, fair argument. Dukasov says, I'm reading the documents, but those docs were 20 versions behind. True. That happened a lot too. And thank you for the lurk, Reg. I hope you're enjoying whatever the other thing is that you are doing. Probably watching DynConf. DynConf Day 2 is currently going, started about 13 minutes ago. Don't let me interrupt you from being able to get whatever information you want from it. I'm just going to do my job and be here. And I welcome any of your comments that you might have, even if it's talking about something that they're discussing on .NET Conf. Feel free to comment on it, even if you can't hear my response. So that was something that I was doing in Thindle's stream. I was actually trying to listen to the speakers more, and at times he was talking over the speakers. So I turned him down and was watching it on Visual Studio, but making my comments in his chat. And then, of course, the majority of the time I was just focused on my work. So it was actually kind of difficult to comment. But anyway, feel free to do that here, if you can even hear me, if you haven't already muted or turned me down. Okay, so let me talk about the field mapper wrapper base. Yes, shout out to Thindle. He is an amazing developer, by the way. .NET development knowledge up the woozah. He tries to learn everything he can about I would say specific topics that are relevant to him at that time, but also a variety of topics. He's done a lot of work with thank you so much for the follow, by the way. I just got a message from my dad. I got him a new phone while they were here visiting, and he was using it. I don't even want to say what it is. It's not an Android phone. I'll say it that way. And he'd been using Android this whole time. So it's probably been about 10 to 20 years that he's been using Android. Actually, no, it'd probably be only about 10 years since they've gotten their mobile phones. 10 to 15 years, more like. Anyway, so he got a Nada Android, and he was using it. It was working just fine, and he was charging it. But this morning, my mom writes me, and she's like, Poppy's phone is not turning on. It's not starting. It's just dead. So he's taking it into a phone company. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me know if they say it's something like the power adapter or anything like that. Like, we need to get an actual branded power adapter for that specific phone. Then we can go ahead and do that. And then she's like, okay, we'll let you know. And then he just now messaged me, and he's like, I found out how to start the phone. Volume up, down, and start button for 20 seconds. And then it started. That does not make sense. Why would you be required to do that to start your phone? That makes sense at all. Anyway, okay, so field mapper wrapper base. Yeah, it seemed like a reset. Why? Just make it easy on him. Let him use his phone. You push the power button, it turns on. Maybe you hold the power button, it turns on, but having to hold up, down, and power at the same time to turn it on or to reset it. Yeah, time to go back to Android. I told him if he's not happy with that phone within 30 days, he can change it out for the Android phone. But I did want to give him the chance to find out whether he likes it or not himself. I didn't want to flavor his opinion of that brand of phone. But I was like, it's going to be a very different experience than the one that you're used to. Last time I'm going to say this. Field mapper wrapper base. It's just really fun to say. In here, this is the base component that will be on 2 of the 3 ways to display the field mapper editor. Way number 1 is in a modal. So pretty much a HTML element that's displayed as a modal window, which is something that pops up on your screen, usually has a transparent or not transparent, opaque or translucent background that's dark, and then the actual content of it is front and center of your screen, typically. The flyout, which is one that comes out from the sides, you know, kind of like a drawer that opens from the sides, and both of those wrap the third way to show it, which is the field mapper editor content itself that can be displayed by itself as its own component, so again controlled by the developer, or inside of one of these other 2, and you get to decide as the developer who is showing the mapper editor which way do you want it to show. Flat on the screen in line, or in a modal, or in a flyout. So the field mapper wrapper base, I said I was only going to say it one more time, but it's just too fun to say, has I'm forcing the field mappings that are getting provided to be an immutable array because I want the developer to know that the original items in the field mapping list that they provide are not going to be modified. Instead, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get a clone of all of those field mappings, and we're going to be using this field mapper editor to work on those clones only. I'm still in the middle of cleaning up the field mapper wrapper base. I'm happy with Android, less locked compared to some other device type. I'm going to reply to him real quick so that the notification gets off my phone. So hopefully that doesn't happen too often. Oh man, I will announce this because I just love this game. I love this company so much. This is not sponsored. This is not I'm gonna endorse it, but they're not paying me. They never got in contact with me about it. But Awaken Realms is releasing another game. The Kickstarter for it starts tomorrow, and I think it's on GameFound. It's called Lands of Evershade. Here it is. Starts in 23 hours and 38 minutes. And this is a tabletop game that is D&D inspired. They have created a whole bunch of other tabletop games, and this is like the culmination of all of the best things from all of those games. You get minis. Instead of having stock characters that you start from, you kind of have archetypes, and then you get to customize them D&D style. So it's kind of like Tainted Grail, another one of their games. Yes, Gremlins. Wait, where'd it go? It's kind of like Tainted Grail, where you are on an adventure, you're reading story, you're deciding what you do during that story, but it is story based, and it's co-op, and you're or soloable. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to the story. It's gonna be amazing. So good. So anyway, if you have the means and the availability to, I recommend backing this game. And usually if you're a backer, even if you're a late backer, you get a whole bunch of freebies. All of the stretch goals, all of the upgrades, all of the new things that they're like, well, we just thought that it needed that it needed this element, and we didn't want to make you have to pay for it, so we're giving that to you. It's just so cool. So cool. Good grief. Can you imagine the amazing things people are going to do with these minis for people that like painting minis? Man. So much detail in these. Anyway, love the dock. Okay. So I'm cleaning up this field mapper wrapper base currently because I don't need the edited field mappings here at all. Maybe I do. What I do need is the map fields button to get called. Handle field mappings changed. You love the duck. You're just trying to get me to say something naughty. I'm telling on you. Oh, by the way, person who followed, I don't have names turned on that show up on screen in case you want to remain anonymous. But welcome in. Thank you so much for the follow. and you're always welcome to chime in if you have anything you feel like saying, and you're always welcome to just lurk and never ever say a thing if you don't feel like it. I was so close to writing the wrong word myself. Whoops. It's okay, I got the ban hammer ready. Not that I can ban you. Oh, maybe I can. I don't know. I have the button. I wouldn't ban you. Not for an innocent mistake like that. Okay. I'll read through this because we're gonna do it. We're going to clean this up and figure out what we're supposed to do. But let's start one layer down and then move through the value transformation components too. So the flat version of the field mapper editor is just a table that shows the right now it's 3 columns. I'm still deciding whether to have the mapping type in here or not. I think I've thought about this a lot and have come to the same conclusion that because there is the potential for a field mapping type to be like a conditional value, that we would need to be able to select that from a list, because the only 2 mapping types that I've created so far are copy the value from one field, from one source field, the file that you imported, and transform it and then dump that transformed value into your destination field, or combine fields, which is combine one or more, because you can still combine one field, it's just the same as a copy with a transform. Combine one or more fields with their transforms in a specific way and use that as the output. But the third one is going to be a conditional output, where only output this field if the result of transforming one or more fields and combining them and doing whatever you do to them, calculating them, is matching some condition, then output the value. Otherwise, output some other value, don't output anything, whatever. Source is the drop-down selections for where to get the data from. Okay. Makes sense. Once again, this also has, so you'll see that the field mapper wrapper base has the immutable field mappings, again telling the developer we're not going to change the underlying objects or any of the objects in the element array, at least not directly. Then the field descriptors, which are going to be the imported fields information that we talked about earlier. An event callback that lets whoever is using this component know that we've updated the fields that we're editing, but we haven't committed it. That's just in case the parent component wants to display a preview of the entire dataset with these field mappings applied. And then finally, on commit clicked will give the resulting final list of our edited field mappings back to the parent, that it can then be applied in the parent. On cancel clicked, we don't send anything back. Hopefully the parent will know to undo any changes, even though no changes, again, were applied to the underlying field mappings anyway, so nothing to undo, just hide the window. On initialize, we clone all of the field mappings from our array, from our immutable array, and we work on this only. And for the field mapper base, since the field mapper base is going to have a child field mapper editor component, then when the child emits the event that my draft set has changed, then this one will update its mappings, its held in place mappings, and then pass to the parent component invoke the event callback that the field mappings have changed. And finally, this is the commit. So handle commit clicked. Man, time is just moving. Okay, so as a reminder, I have a meeting at 12:30. So that's in 2 hours. I'm going to stop the stream in 1.5 hours. We'll get as far as we can. If the meeting is relatively short, I mean, that's going to be the end of my workday. So I probably won't restart the stream after the meeting. Okay, so this is now handle commit clicked. And the whole reason that I decided, now that I'm looking at this, the whole reason that I decided to keep this edit field mappings list I love that command for the UTC. Yeah, so the reason I decided to keep this private enumerable of field mappings in the wrapper, even though it's all being managed and maintained in the actual editor component itself, is because I needed a way to pass it up to the parent container to say, I am committing these values. Yeah, which should happen. Well, this is going to happen in whatever order it happens in, using a task window. Okay, so the field mapper editor, again, the very first thing it does, and this is what I'm kind of not really wanting, I guess. Changes are not committed to the underlying, or to the provided C field mappings. Instead, they are plugged, edited this component. What is that one called? CREF on draft field mappings changed will notify parent components when the field mappings are changed, when the edited field mappings are changed. And then the parent can decide whether it wants to apply it immediately, keep aggregating them until some kind of apply button is clicked. And so, as you can guess, the apply button comes with that field mapper wrapper. So the field mapper dialog and the field mapper flyout, both of those have a commit button. But if you were to implement this yourself or to use it yourself, the field mapper editor by itself, you could listen for that draft field mappings changed event, and then apply those changes immediately to your maintained list, or again, wait until all of them are done and have your own button that you push that says apply those changes. I like that. That works well. You look like you're unused. What's your... Be marked as static. I mean, I guess it can. That is true. Actually, that is not true. It is true though. Oh man. So I'm expecting these field mappings that get passed into this method to be from our list of field mappings, our cloned list. But again, I'm not actually accessing the list of cloned field mappings. I am taking the reference to one of those items in the list and then accessing its mapping rule and then adding a new transformation to that mapping rule. So that is true. So I'm okay with that. And I think I'm going to do that for the remove and the update. Not the update. The update does access member, instance member, instance member, so instance members. Some word. Okay, so I like that. We are getting rid of that because this no longer relies on state. So that's pretty good. I am happy with that. The UI for this, like I said, is a table that has those 3 columns, and we just print out the list of field mappings with their current rules selected with the yeah, I have a field picker that gets reused, so I made it into a render fragment. And I could have put this in the code behind. I do have a code behind right here, but it's a lot easier to write Razor syntax in a .razor file instead of using the builder, the render fragment builder, in my opinion. And thank you so much for the follow. Oh, wow. I remember you. No worries. There's absolutely no requirement to follow. If you were gonna be here like all the time and you never followed once, completely acceptable. But the fact that you did follow, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I think you're gonna remind me again in 10 minutes before. Yeah, okay. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're currently working on pulling in the remainder of the UI. Actually, all of the UI is now pulled in. I am finalizing the cache the mapping rules. I'm finalizing the components that we're putting on top of the import library. So the import library is done. I'm going to call it done. I must have forgot because this was follow at first sight. Aw, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is just proving that the library is done. All tests pass. Yes. 0 test failures. Of course, you know, it's 100% code coverage. Absolutely isn't. So we're importing, or not importing, we're finishing up the remainder of the logic for the component library that I put on top of the data import utility library. I'm talking through it so that I can get my bearings to find out what actually is left. From the field mapper editor, when you select a mapping type and a field, then you have the opportunity to edit, which would be down here, to edit that component, or not component, that transformation, which means provide details on what that transformation does. Are you actually transforming the values using a calculation that says, from this field, give me the value for that field for that row and do some math on it, or extract some text from it, or just transform the text by looking it up in a list of, if I see this text, I'll put this other text, kind of thing. I guess another thing that I wanted to do with the library is for that map transformation operation, I want to have a bool flag a Boolean flag that allows the user to specify what to do if the value doesn't exist. Like if the lookup value doesn't exist. Do you want me to give back the original value, or do you want me to give back null? Why do you have an unused variable? Why do you have unused variable? Do I have any get values mapping rule type that I was trying to replace this with? Interesting. I don't know where this unused variable came from, but we're getting rid of it. I'm sure if I went back and watched the videos, I would see it. Okay, so the field transformation, again, for every field mapping, which is for every target field in the type that you have specified, that is called a field mapping. A field mapping has how to map it. Is it going to be copy values, or is it going to be combined values, or is it going to be ignore? And there could be any number of other mapping rules that can be implemented, that can be added to this library. Then inside of that mapping rule, where are we getting our mappings from? What field are we getting the mapping from? And so that is a field transformation. Where's the value coming from, and how are we transforming it? So inside of every field transformation, there is a potential list of value transformation base. Are we doing substring? Are we doing regex? Are we doing regex followed by an interpolation? Are we doing maths on it? Whatever. So that makes sense. It looks like we are modifying the field transformation directly. We aren't modifying a clone of it until we get a commit event. I think I want to change that. We'll change it when we get to this component. Yeah. And so this field transformation UI has everything that's needed to pick the transformation types and chain them together and see some preview output for the selected field. Each field transformation object requires a field. It's called an imported field record descriptor, which is the thing from the data set that says, for this data table, this field exists with this data type, and here's the list of values from that field. So it does require that. I do actually have a transformation results cache for this to do up here, but it looks like it's not implemented yet fully. Okay, but that's a field transformation, and like I said, it provides the UI needed to configure the field transformation, and one of those things that it needs to do is actually configure each individual field transformation. So there's a UI for that, which gives us a select list for you to choose which type of transformation do you want to use: regex, substring, interpolation, blah, 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 blah. And the details for that specific operation. So for interpolate, there's one input field and you're putting in the pattern for how to combine the string with other string. Substring, you're giving it the starting value and the max number of characters. The regex operation, you're typing in the actual regex currently. And for everything by default, it gets a type something into the text field. and then it displays a preview for that one rule of one value. Here's the value coming in, here's the value going out after the transformations have applied, and here are any errors that might have occurred. Okay, so that's the entire component library. Again, we're still back up here at the field mapper dialog at the field wrapper mapper base stuff, just to make sure that that is all cleaned up and doing what it's supposed to do, structured the way it's supposed to be structured. One thing I said I wanted to do is to prefix all of these classes here, because do I want to do that? If you happen to be using Bootstrap, then this would work just fine in Bootstrap, because I'm pretty sure this is the right structure for a Bootstrap modal. Modal role dialog, modal dialog, modal content, modal header, modal title, modal body, modal footer. Yeah, so it's the right structure for Bootstrap. So that's a decision I'm gonna have to make then. What I did with my sample when we were first setting this up to test out the library was I provided a whole bunch of styles on each of the components. So when you get one of the components, you get some styles for free. Now I'm wondering if I should just not include any styles, or this could be a case for doing an actual style, so that if you want to use the built-in component styles, then you would link rel style sheet href equals underscore content. The thing that I really don't want the user to have to do, the developer to have to do, which is reference the style sheet directly in their code. One thing that I just thought of, and I'm interested if anyone has an opinion, and if you don't, that's completely okay, is what if I did provide all of the basic styles for this component library using isolated CSS, which if you're using isolated CSS in your app anywhere, then you're going to get these styles with it. But what if, in order to not apply these styles from those isolated CSS and you get to style it yourself on a per component basis, I had a class, I had a switch on all of these components called no style. What I would do with no style is if no style in my CSS, I would have a rule for colon not no style. Did that make sense? I hope that made sense. So for example, let's say for this field wrapper base, for my dialog specifically, First, it needs the no style parameter. Whether to show the commit button. That's exactly whether to style the component, whether to apply CSS styling to the component default, whether or not to apply the default CSS styling. Nitpicky, isn't he? And so if and I'm just going to do it this way because lazy. Oops, you go outside. Another. Just one. Okay. So if no styling, then no style, else null. Wait. Oh, you need parents, right? So if I were to apply some isolated CSS to this, file field mapper dialog. I like using SCSS when I write CSS. So I'd create my .razor.scss file, which gets nested under it. And that will generate, when I tell it to compile, it'll create my compiler config, add a entry into this array that says my input file is my SCSS file, my output file is CSS, which I also get the min.css with it. And you can see that here. Then my first rule is going to be not, actually it's going to be modal not, no style. Then anything that I put inside of here is going to apply, but only when no styling is false. And so I think I already have some styles for modals. Dialog mixins. Unfortunately, that starts at the modal itself. So I kind of want it to start at not the modal. We have to reference that partial sass import // that's really there it is, sass dialog mixins. I need to decide whether I'm calling it a dialog or a modal. I'm going to call it a modal. Modal mixins. And you're called modal defaults. Include modal defaults. So why not? Did I spell something wrong? It is include, right? Undeclared mixin. Okay, it is not undeclared. Oh, it's because it's plural. No, it isn't. Modal mixin. There we go. Okay, so it thought that the file didn't exist because I renamed it after doing the import and combining them, whatever. Point is, it's there. So now I have my styling specifically for the field mapper dialog, but only if no style is false. if you are allowing it to have its default styling. That might be how I go forward making my customizable component library, where the only thing you are really getting from a component library anymore is the structure for how the components render, but you still get to decide how they get styled on an individual component basis. So let's say in one place you wanted the default modal styles to apply and another one you didn't, or you wanted to toggle it at runtime, then I have a parameter that you can do that with. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have because it is a UI concern, and so it belongs with the component itself, which is a UI. And then you have a 2 hours before. Later. Cancel. Oh man. Oof. Okay. So I like that idea. I'm not gonna do CSS on it yet, other than that modal that I just applied. What I need to go back to is the dialogue. Talked about the styling on that. Talked about potentially prefixing things, but I'm not going to prefix it anymore. The flyout, same thing. Not going to prefix it. You are going to go ahead and have the same no styling flag because it was in the base class. Stay there. Save. Ooh, I'm getting some anxiety and butterflies over the meeting that I'm going to have later. It's been a while since I've had to attend a meeting. Okay, so I guess I may as well do the field mapper flyout. Field mapper flyout dot razor dot scss. Same thing, telling it to compile. I will follow along as I would be working on a weed e-commerce store for some reason. Well, I hope you have the best of success with it and are able to get it all taken care of and figured out. Not dot no style. And we're going to reference import // sass / fly out mixins. Did someone say e-commerce? Hello, Captain Commerce. Sorry to take you out of lurk. Hope it's not too disruptive. Include flyout defaults. No worries, was just about to go exercise. Awesome! Awesome, I wish you the best on your exercise. I got mine in this morning. Feel great after it. Okay, so those two got styles. The captain has been summoned. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna do mini commit for these UI changes to it's mostly the field wrappers and field mapper stuff. What did I change for you? Probably spacing. Right. And the display for dataset display when there is no dataset provided. And you got rid of an unused variable. So yeah, I'm gonna do these first. And these are gonna be updated styling on field mapper components. I am going to do these two as minor removed unused code. I already forgot what this one was. And changed data table display data set component. See, this is me being too verbose. Can I make a valid wheat store in 2 hours? Probably. Probably. You can make any kind of store. Like, I don't think the actual thing you're selling is going to be the deciding factor of whether or not you're able to create the e-commerce site. Yeah. If you have all the data already, then potentially there's a lot of configuration, but there are also lots of turnkey platforms that can be utilized. Oh, don't use big terms with me. You're going to make my brain melt. There would be custom lead configuration. Yeah, again, this still sounds like it can be applicable to any product or family of products. I think the variety of types of products is what's going to make it difficult. But again, it's still just... I see the pattern for applying the same thing you would do if it was a services website or a where you offer different types of services and customizations. And you will deliver to the doorstep. Awesome. Yeah, so it's stuff like that that would make it more complicated. Are you offering delivery services? Are you offering online order ahead? Or do you have promotions that you're going to allow? Do you have a rewards point system? Those are the types of things that I think would complicate it more than it being a specific product or class of products. And it kind of feels like you're also testing the waters to see if yeah, that it's legal in Colorado, so I took you seriously, as I will often do. I will take people seriously when they talk and say things out of respect. But yeah. But we joked about it today, and I want to show my colleagues for whatever reason. Absolutely okay. Again, practicing your software development skills, I highly endorse that, highly encourage you to follow that path. Just play around. Yeah. And then when you're sharing your content, though, that's when I would recommend that you are more mindful of your audience too. So as you can tell, this channel is kind of, we're laid back and all, but not all topics are appropriate for this channel. Yeah, if it's just for demo joke purposes, it's easy enough to set up NOP Commerce. Yeah, check out, do you still have any VODs available? Did you ever post any? Did you ever save any anywhere? Captain Commerce used to be able to stream often, and he showed a lot of really cool stuff with NOP Commerce. Unfortunately, time and circumstances have prevented him from being able to stream as often or ever. Never saved the bots. Ah, I'd like to do some dev. Yeah. Do you know how to set up VPS and run .NET sites on it? I personally don't, and I would help you through it. I'd help you research some of it, but not during my workday. Maybe on a community day stream, we can look at that. And again, I'd want to, like, if I'm going to show it on stream, then I definitely want to change the product you are joking with. Make it like yak butter or something instead of a controlled substance. Cool. Thank you for responding to that, Captain Commerce. Whew. Okay, so I got some basic what are these called? Styles in for the modal and flyout. I'm going to move these down here since I went ahead and started putting them together, committed them, but I still need to get back to the value configuration transformation, whatever these are called, field transformation and value configuration components. And I saw some to-dos on there that maybe I want to address now. And again, I am really wanting to run the application and see what it looks like now. I know that I have not applied any styling other than the flyout and modal that we just now did, but I want to see if the functionality is there. Because again, I would really like to see the HTML structure that we get in the DOM when these components render the way that they're supposed to. But first, let's finish off with these field transformation and value transformation components. So are you doing what I want you to do? Question mark. That's my first question. You're going to be a value config. So for testing purposes, I like to have IDs on components where, well, just in general, but on components where there are potentially going to be more than one of them on a page displaying at a time, I like them to have an ID. I think I've been using strings. ID underscore ID equals GUID dot new GUID dot toString dot substring, which is the same as this, and I think I've been using the last 5. It's unique enough. Oh, 5 dot dot. I was like, why is this only giving me a character back? Because that's what you're dereferencing. Okay, and this is going to be an ID that is, do I start with it? No, I start with the element itself, which is a field transformation modal, and then I concatenate it with the ID. Nice, I followed the official Hostinger tutorial, but yeah, it didn't go well. Also, what could I call you both? You could call us both developers or by our screen handles. Captain Commerce, 1 Lion. Friend? And this is a field transform config modal. Not just any modal. 1 lion. Captain Commerce. 1 lion works for me. It would be my preferred name that you address me as on stream. Either 1 lion or 1 lion or 1 or 2 lions or 3 lions if you read 1 as binary, or 11 lion or 11D lion or something along those lines. 1, for example. Except if I were to say it the way Captain Commerce says it, I'd probably break my throat. I don't think I can get any louder than this volume unless I laugh, unless I get caught off guard and made to laugh very loud. E-lion. E-lion works. And CC or C2 or C2. Well, no, C2 is taken. C2 is the name of this black tabby right here, or gray tabby that you can't really see because of the screen. This thing. That's C2. C2. Capcom. Yeah. I love calling him Capcom. Who doesn't love a good Capcom? Yeah, my handle is a little long, but it's easy to say. Captain Commerce. CAPM. Captain. Oh wait, company location DTO. Where do you see that? I don't have a company location DTO. President, I mean, first of all, hi. I'm sure you've said this a million times before. Are your pronouns she and her? Have I been screwing it up this whole time? There, he, him. Okay. It was just, there was this day that you were laughing at me for saying sir at you like that. Other than, you know, the typical dear sir or madman. Updated. All right, Captain Commerce, enjoy. Do your best. I hope it's rejuvenating and not just tiring. That you get some good energy flowing. I don't remember that. I only remember our banter around dear sir or madman. It was a day when you were saying something funny. I can't really remember what it was, but it was pretty entertaining. And I was like, look here, sir. Don't use that language, or something like that. Oh, read only. I was like, where are you dots? Go away. Okay, so on this field transformation, am I happy with what you are doing? Do I have any to-dos in here? Oh man, we're gonna look at my task list and I'm gonna clear them. Well, whatever it was, you did it all correctly. Cool. I just remember there was a stream we had. Dr. Capmser was here, and it was a community day, and we were discussing gender equality essentially in the workspace in general, but in software development industry specifically. And there was someone from our community that had already been here for a while that was telling stories about, as a woman in software development, I can attest to these things going on. and I couldn't remember who it was. But I was like, I didn't know your pronouns to begin with, but you're telling them to me now and I should note them down, and I didn't note them down. Other than Dr. Kattenser. She had some really good things to say about it, and I just floundered. I wanted to say good things. Hockey-ducky. I'm scrolling now because my brain is starting to think about the AWS meeting coming up in an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a quarter. We got offended at something one of our regular community members said or didn't say. I think it was just a misunderstanding, though. Captain Commerce stepped away. He went to go do some exercise. Captain. Which only presents a problem when the Captain Coder pops in. Or Dr. Captain Sir. Or there's another captain that showed up on Irish John Games' stream. Showed up on here a couple times. CPT... I can't remember. Oh. I just need to... I'm going to look for my notes on the previous meeting that I had with AWS so that I can remember what all I wanted to talk with them about. I think I told you guys about it where we had a meeting, and as I was talking with them... Is this it? File storage planning. In October? Really? It was that recent? No, file storage planning research to find out how how soon I can expect our storage to fill up. But anyway, we were talking, and most of the way, or pretty far into the conversation is what I was trying to say, the people that we were talking with were like, well, we don't really know who manages your account. So you're going to have to talk with them about those things that you're bringing up. And I was like, but I was hoping to get this sorted out and, you know, help the company save some money on the way that we're using the cloud. That would have been nice. Because as I mentioned, the way that I've structured everything was we had an on-premise server. It had vSphere on it and a whole bunch of virtual machines. Like, I think it was 6 total virtual machines. And we were no longer allowed to have an on-premise solution for our hosting stuff. I mean, it's where our applications were hosted on or actually it was Tomcat, but then IIS when I was converting them over, and the overseers, the overlords were like, no, you aren't allowed to be a data center anymore. And a data center means that you host your own stuff. So you need to move it to our site, and they were going to charge us a lot of money to host the amount of data that we had, or come up with our own cloud solution. And so we opted for coming up with our own cloud solution. Where are my notes for the AWS meeting from last time? Oh, and what I was getting at with that is the way that I got us into the cloud was just to take our current structure, lift it up, move it over to the cloud, and make the cloud look just like that. So I reduced the number of virtual machines we had from, I think it was 6. I want to say it was 6 to 4, and still structured a test database, a production database, test IIS, production IIS, ArcGIS, server, DT search, and document data store. and just overall data storage. Notes, notes, notes. Template to do. I don't want to have to come up with a new thing to talk about. I'm going to have to write some new notes for things to bring up to discuss with AWS. But that's okay. I can do that in 30 minutes, right? Come on. You gotta have notes. I take notes for everything, and I save them in my work stuff folder. License, license, license. What are these? No. Those are how I have AWS structured currently. Does anyone remember what I did with my notes from the last meeting with AWS? Because I can't find them. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. So field transformations, right? Those are done. I have a to-do down here to finish up caching field transformations, and the reason that I would want to cache a field transformation specifically the transformation results is so that every time that we do a refresh of field transformations, one of the things that it does is it provides the preview in the field transformations list itself, as well as in each individual rule. So when I'm displaying each individual transformation rule, or these value transformation configurations, I don't want to have to keep doing the apply method as it's iterating through this list of value transformations, because what I want to show individually in this UI is, here's your first value transformation for this field. Here is a sample input and output. And then here's your next value transformation where the output from that previous one is the sample input and output for this current step. And then down here at the bottom, here are all of the records for that column. And here's their input value and output transformed value as a result of this entire process. So essentially what I keep track of is, for every value, for every transformation, what is the transformation result at each step? And therefore I just return the transformation result at that index only. This. So the first thing I do is I check to see if it's in the transformation results. If it is, then I return that result as long as the original value is the same and the rule hasn't changed. Otherwise, I do the actual transform or something like that. Anyway, that looks good to me. I don't exactly know what this to do update means, but I'm getting rid of it. Value transformation configuration. Again, this is for a single value transformation within a field transformation. I don't think there's much to update here. I'm not seeing any to-dos. It looks fine. I'm not checking for delegates anymore. I'm just invoking. And then finally, one specific rules details. I did have this UI started for combined fields, which was this kind of tabular form, but I think I like the multi-field selector and then edit each one of those field transformations individually, differently. Mark is red. Okay, any to-dos inside of here though? No, but I do want to simplify this because no more delegate checks. It really does end up looking a lot cleaner if I don't do the delegate check. I just feel weird because I remember running into issues before. If I haven't done a has delegate and I tried to do invoke async, I got crashes, runtime crashes. Bottle done. Next. So we're going to call it good and figure out what small changes I made in these. Commit. I'm probably going to push this too. Then we're going to start looking at the actual UI markup. I didn't even read that one. Simplified delegate checks and unique modal IDs. Absolutely what I was trying to do. Thank you. That was a very good comment, Copilot. Okay, push so that it's safe. Oh man. I've been getting to a point where my energy just suddenly feels drained, even though I've got plenty to spare. So let's keep going. Before running the app, let's look at our task list. There's only 2 to-dos. Okay, I was gonna say there are a heck of a lot more to-dos. This even doesn't seem like enough. Build. You know what? One of these is done. One of them that I just saw. Make the rows clickable. Ah, you're done. You are no longer a to-do. I remember implementing that. Consider if we're going to have a regex syntax builder. Yes. We will have a regex syntax builder. I don't know what that's going to look like. I will probably look for an existing library that will help with building a regex for the regular expression match operation. This is something easy that we can do. In our data file mapper. So this is the one that if you want to use the entire UI in one go and have it handle all of the mapping, all of the configuration of the value transformation and stuff, you just use this one component and listen for any callbacks. You could provide your own mapper state if you want, so you have more control over what the data is doing and stuff. So anyway, if you push preview output and there is no preview, even though there should be one, then I want to display a message saying no preview available or something. But before I do that, thank you so much for the follow and welcome in, Anadesia. Anastasia. I'm trying to do a carniceria website for my work. Carniceria. Is that like a meat shop of some kind? It's kind of what I would guess it is. I was thinking of using Python, Django, but seems ASP.NET is a better option for that project. So because this is a .NET site, I am very biased towards recommending people use .NET. I do love it as a web technology, a web application building technology, and that sounds like a perfect use case for using .NET. That said, your other options, I would recommend Python the least, based off of what I've heard from people. It's not really, it wasn't originally intended, I don't think, to do web applications with. Other options I would recommend before that are Angular, React, these JavaScript libraries with Node. President Not Sure says Python blows in my opinion. And again, our opinions, and you can definitely still use Python if you think that it's something worth your time. Another thing that I would consider is, what do you want to get experience in using? If you don't already have a job in software development, but you want one in software development, what kind of industries do you want to go into? If this is your job, do you have a team that you're working with that has a preferred language? And if you are currently just like a clean slate, I'll use whatever language, then go with whatever your team prefers. If you're a solo developer and you're just learning, maybe this is a practice app or a side app, or it is an app that you want to create to start a business, then go with, in my opinion, for this type of app, go with .NET. They have a really, really good ecosystem, not only for creating the app, but for knowing where to deploy, different ways to deploy it, host it. You have a lot of flexibility if you choose .NET. But again, this is all biased. I love working in .NET. I have seen the powerful applications you can create using .NET, and I would be able to help you if you chose .NET. Not so much if you chose any of the other languages. You are always welcome to get more opinions from our Discord, or if you don't feel like joining yet another Discord server, then ask around on the internet. Definitely. I am only one voice, one opinion. President Not Sure is another opinion. And gather as many as you need to convince you which direction to go. But regardless of what direction you go, it's not going to offend me if you don't choose .NET. But I will encourage you. I don't have a job yet. I just graduated from university, so to be honest, I'm a little lost, but my direction, it's to be a web developer. So yeah, you still do have a lot of options for you. If the area that you're in predominantly uses Java, JSP, for example, which I hope they don't, then use JSP for this project that you're working on. In the US, at least in my area, there are plenty of .NET web application jobs. The other one that is also very predominant in the US is React. We saw a little of C++, but the rest was only Java, so I should stick with that. Not in my opinion. When I went to university, I started off with C, C++, and Java, all in my first year. I failed them all, but that's neither here nor there. But basically, by the time I graduated from university, I was using JSP for my senior project. It was a web application for enterprise systems, human resources enterprise systems, with an Oracle database backend and PHP as well. So I use JSP and PHP just to show that I could. CGI calls and all of that fun stuff. I've forgotten the majority of it, but that doesn't matter. But after I graduated, I was working a federal service job and they used Microsoft technologies there, and got the opportunity to work on an ASP application, ASP Classic, and I loved it, and I learned from there, MVC. But I didn't learn any .NET technologies while I was going to university at all. The language is only part of it. It's what application framework you're using as well. If you like Java syntax but hate the frameworks and ecosystem, you'll hate programming in Java day after day. Same with JavaScript. I agree wholeheartedly. There are a lot of frustrations that come with just about any decision you make, any technology stack you choose. But the original statements for .NET versus JavaScript stuff is that JavaScript has been around for ages. They have a robust documentation history and plenty of docs available for the frameworks and the languages. And .NET didn't. Now, .NET Microsoft Docs plus Microsoft Learn plus all of the tutorials that are out there make it where Microsoft Docs and resources are plentiful enough for you to be able to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to do. And in my opinion, JavaScript has forked so many times into different frameworks, into different technologies, that it's hard to find a thing that is specific to what you're working on. And President Not Sure says, in my opinion, Microsoft documentation is second to none. It's gotten so much better than it used to be. So yes, my final answer is still go with .NET. If you have any option available to you, go with the .NET ecosystem. For a meat shop application, go with Blazor. If you're intending to have a desktop application alongside with it, so let's say you have a point of sales application that runs on cash register hardware and you don't want it to be web-based, go with Maui. Okay, that's my answer. I hope it was beneficial, helpful, a bit biased, but also accepting of it's your choice in the end. Go with what makes sense to you. iOS mobile programmers were using Microsoft documentation of Xamarin iOS to program iOS directly because the Apple docs got so lousy. I did not know that. That's hilarious. I'm simply going to display a no preview message. Private const string no preview message. No preview available. And I'm going to set a bool flag, private bool, no preview available. And at the beginning of the handle toggle preview output, I'm going to set this to false so we clear any message displays. And if preview output is null, then we will do actually we'll just do it in here because I am returning early, which kind of makes me want to put it down here. So if preview output is not null, then show transform preview, and then we can continue. Or, I mean, it doesn't really matter what order we do this in. We don't need to return early. which again, we don't need to now compare that. We just do not this. If not, no preview available. There we go. I like that better. Thank you so much. I got a little confused, a lot of info, but I think I will go for the C# pathways since I use Java. The place to start, how much HTML, CSS, and JavaScript experience / comfort do you feel you have? Because I would say that the first place to start is sketching out the entire UI, like even the landing page, in static HTML with just HTML, JavaScript, or HTML and CSS. Yeah, I did too. That was where I learned my HTML and CSS. Java and C# are first cousins. Entity just said, I used Free Code Camp for the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then President Not Sure said, yeah, Java and C# are first cousins. I like that. If you're looking for a full introductory course to C#, Free Code Camp has the Foundations course. Free Code Camp. Called .NET Foundation C# with Microsoft certification. And recommend this. And then if you need more, like, do you learn better from books or from video tutorials or blogs? Is that decide whether or not I recommend the next YouTube video resource. If you don't like video courses or anything like that, then I won't recommend this to you. Fundamentals. Fundamentals. Sharp. This 8-hour video is worth going through. You'll see the similarities between Java and C# pretty easily, pretty fast. So if you're okay with videos, here's a video resource. If you don't care for videos, skip this. And of course, you're always welcome to ask questions on our Discord, as I mentioned before. The thing is with our Discord that it's not very busy. It does get busy very rarely. But the thing that doesn't happen on our Discord is you won't get berated for asking a question. I actually just saw a Stack Overflow post. Do I still have it open? I don't even remember what I was searching for, but there was someone getting berated for asking the question wrong or for misinterpreting something or other. Yeah, I still have it open. This is just not necessary. This is a possible duplicate of this, and then they said no, that's for modifying the list. This is iterating over the list. And dude was like, the reason for the slowness is the same in both cases. So you're saying that had you read the answers to the other posts before posting your own question, you still would not have been able to figure out for yourself. That made it slower. Yes, that is the case, because those questions were asking about poor modification performance, which I expected to be bad. I looked past them thinking it was not relevant to my issue. Sorry, I don't see how the fact that you didn't read the question and its answers is it's just like, if you're going to spend this much time berating the person, just answer their question instead. Be helpful. Say, I got this from this other question. It could be that blah, 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 blah. No, you're a jerk for posting a question that's already been asked before. Can't stand that. Grates on my nerves so bad. We're over here. Okay, so I did that to do. Yes, it very much is. So President Not Sure said Stack Overflow is full of that toxicity. Absolutely. I mean, people will go out of their way to berate someone for about the same amount of time it would take them to summarize an answer that was given previously and then say, I got this from this other Stack Overflow post. Yeah, I'm never, ever posting to Stack Overflow again. Until something changes, unless something changes. But I... Oh, man. I did not like the experience when I did that. Especially being my first post. Anyway, find a way to get the namespace. This is all source generator. I don't care about that. I have to-dos in the library. Oh, yeah. I don't need these anymore. I don't think. So we're going to go without. All of my tests are passing and it's functioning the way that I think it should function. If I need those comments back, they'll be in my commit history. So I'm not worried about that. I'll make sure there are apply methods for all of these different things. Same. I answer questions from time to time if I figure something out that is asked about on Stack Overflow that doesn't have the answer that I ultimately came up with. I use it as an answer on Stack Overflow to give people another option. Yes. Wait, what do you mean? Isn't there only one right way to do things? Man. Moving on. Check for changes to the value transformations and reapply the transformations only if there are changes. This is if I am trying to do apply, the object values that wouldn't, that's a hard one. So I have values for the field, gosh, no. You know what? It's performant enough that we can if we call apply on purpose, then we can reapply all of the transformations to all of the values. Consider making this an interface. Right, and this was a TBD recommendation, and I tried it. I started making an import data file, and even then, an abstract import data file base that has all of this stuff. But I think in some of the places that I was using it, I needed a concrete class for some reason. Because like if I start doing it for this one class, I'd want to do it for the child classes too. I will still consider that. I'm going to leave this to do here, knowing that it's going to plague me and be in this list for a long time. Same thing with the regex syntax builder. We will address that after I get through the rest of the list to see what's still valid. We'll start with the regex syntax builder. Cache the mapping rules. So if the user, this is also important. I want to do that one. Validate that all of the required fields are mapped. Definitely want to do that. Validate the map from fields have valid rule definitions. Removing the empty ones. Can definitely do that. Get the mappable field template from the server. This is not part of the library. So no. That is business logic, and that goes in the application that this is used in. Yes. Yes, I agree with myself. Update the service to use this version of the data file. It does. What does that even mean? Update the service to use this version of the data file. There is no service written because, again, this is a separate library, separate from the application itself. So no worries there. Allow setting the flyout mode. Right. So I did say, I said flyout mode. This should actually say table display field mapper display mode. I did say that there were 3 ways to display the field mapper editor. 2 of them are controlled using the field mapper display mode. One is as a modal, another is as a flyout. And I have it in state. This is how you show it. And I need you to emit an event indicating, which you do right here, right? That the field mapper display mode changed. Okay, we're good. Good. What else? Add information about the field. Still want to do this. Okay, so this is kind of in the data file mapper again. Data file mapper is the component that has the entire entire data import utility libraries UI in one component. One of the things that I want to do is have some kind of summary when you're looking at just the table for your imported data for the fields that are mapped. What are they mapped to? How are they being used? Kind of doesn't make sense to do. Because now the field mapper is the thing that controls, so the output field is the thing that controls whether or not that field is being mapped anywhere. So, not really needed. Let's do some cleanup. Nice one. Cool. I think we are good to go. So after that last little cleanup of to-dos, we're left with a relatively short list. We're going to work through these and complete them. I'm going to run the app though. I want to run the app. I haven't seen it since we made changes. And by app, I mean that I have a sample application in here that is Blazor that is using the data file mapper component. Actually, I don't think I added the data file mapper component to it yet, but it will be. And then we'll see that also the component library is not styled. Tell me, Copilot. I cleaned up to-dos, right? That's all I did? Okay, so let's take a look at what the app looks like now. After taking a look at the home page to see if I have a data file mapper. In the sample. It's in client, pages, home. Okay. Yep. Okay, so I created a dummy object called target record. What I was doing before in my sample project was I had a reference to one of my database entity libraries, so just the models, and I was using a model from that database and from that database library. Ignore fields. I don't have an ignore fields property anymore. I got rid of it. So I want to re-add, now that I see it, I want to re-add the ignore fields and the other thing, required fields. Ignore? Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. Man, I'll never get them back. I'm going to open a previous, the current main for this. Blazor fix. I love these songs. I keep doing that, but I have audio lag because I'm using Bluetooth. So the humming and the bumming is going to be lagged. Probably kind of annoying at times. And if it's not, then it's not. Here's a shout out for Anasass Dev. She's been working on her game engine lately. Maybe the Twitch bot, maybe just amazing things. It's a great time over on her stream. Check her out if you get the opportunity. Fantastic developer. She uses Godot. I don't know. I just hang out on her streams. Dagnabbit. Thank you so much for the follow. I have names turned off, or I don't display the name on the follow message up here because I don't want you to feel like you are obligated to do anything just because you followed. You can continue lurking if you've been lurking this whole time, but you're also welcome to chat and say hello and introduce yourself if you feel like it. But no pressure whatsoever. Okay, I wanted to get the data file mapper is what it used to be called. And there was a parameter called ignore fields and a parameter called required fields. So I do want those two back in our current version. Do you have the loading? I don't have the loading render fragment option either. And then how did I use those ignore and require? Oh, they were used here because I was manually getting the mappable fields using reflection on the type. I think that I changed that to be on an extension method. No. In the import data field. Which we're not going to be able to use until a file is picked and we've created a new import data file. Imported data file. Where is that? Oh dear. I'm not going to remember that. We're going to look for that first. But first, I'm going to run the app still. But that at least gives us the ignore fields thing. I'm going to ignore those fields. Aren't those the only two fields inside of this object? How about this? Ignore field 1 and ignore field 2. Let's do that instead. Okay, we're going to do that instead. I'm going to save that. I am going to cd into cd sample app in this. Watch. I know what I'm doing. It has been a while since I've run the app. I built that whole library. Not really built it. I pulled in the parts and pieces and fixed them up and made them whole without running the sample app once. So if things explode, we'll be ready for it and stuff. You can load. You can do it. You can do it. Why are you stuck on building? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a file picker unstyled. We're going to try picking a file. And again, I could just click on choose file, but that'll take me to my thumbnails folder for the VODs. And I don't want to have to change it back because lazy. So instead, I'm going to navigate to the folder that has some sample files that I can use, or may, projects, new lab data. Okay, so here's a CSV. So we got the CSV, no data sets available. So we didn't get the whole process flow working the way that it should have, which is once a file is picked, it notifies the parent component. No, it doesn't. Oh, yes, it does, because data file mapper state is not null when we get into the data file mapper or data file picker. Include internal is true by default, right? Oh, right, it's just a parameter that gets passed in. So handle file selected if data file mapper is not null. Data file mapper show preview is false. Selected file request equals a new file. So this is where I am picking the file, and this is where the ignore fields. Now this is where the notification needs to happen. That's it. Oh. Do I have the data file mapper state listening to the events and doing different things? That could be what the issue is. So when we get the register data file picker, we're listening to these two events with our internal handle selected data table changed. So let me see if I'm doing that in the current application. I mean the current iteration. On select register data file picker. I don't have registered data file picker. Yes, I do. It's right here. On file request changed, internal. That's data file display. On file picked internal. On file. Oh, I'm trying to control tab. Alt tab, please. Handle file picked. Yes. Handle file picked. Normally I'd have these on 2 different screens side by side, but I'm only streaming from one screen. File read state turns into file selected. Here's the request, and then perform the file request. This one is the, well, we should be able to tell because of the open files on the side here. So this is the previous version, the one that I was using as kind of my sketch scaffold. File read. And so we are reading. We read import file from our data service reader and get back the data file. The data file, yeah, which is the import data file. And this is where we would specify the ignore fields. Which I don't have any methods to be able to do at the moment. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that this is where I need to put the ignore fields and required fields parameters. We're just setting the data fields, error message, and that's it. There is no other event that we're invoking that says a file has been loaded. So I think that that's also something that's missing inside of handle file picked. I'm just adding more to-dos now. So I'm wrapping up because I'm about to end the stream, but I don't want to forget this. No. I was going to say this could be done inside of the file read request. Raise an event. Oh, you know what? Events are being raised. File read state. On file read state changed. Perform file request. File read state changed. File read state changed. Okay. So there is this file read state changed event that's getting invoked. And that is being listened to nowhere currently. And it used to be listened to in the data file mapper. In the data file mapper. So maybe it is just this easy. I just need to grab all of these event listeners, subscribe to them here, unsubscribe to them here, and we should be good to go. Let's see what that does. Wait, I am unsubscribing from them, but I'm not subscribing to them. Got it. Wait, that's the state. Data file picker. Where's your code behind? I don't want to stop. We're making progress. but I gotta get ready for this meeting. Okay, so yes. If register self to state and that's data file picker mapper. We will always have a state, so we can always subscribe to it. Good. Okay. And this needs to now implement iDisposable. I am in the right one, right? Data file mapper. Data file mapper. Okay. Field mapper display mode changed. And finally, oh, wait, two more things. This, you unsubscribe here. You're missing an unsubscribe, it kind of looks like. That would have been bad. Minus. Okay, and finally, handle state changed is just going to be state is changed for now. I don't want it to be for now. Handle file read error is another one that we need. And where is our handle file picked? Private string error message. And where are we using this? Here on file picked. Come on, do the thing. Give me my cursor. Just because I copied something to my clipboard doesn't mean you have to freeze. All right, there is no on file picked event callback anymore because that is being handled in a different way. On file request changed. Is that what this used to be called? That's what this used to be called, because it's no longer on file picked. We're just updating the file request. And the only thing I'm doing with it anyway is clearing the error message, if there was one. So then where am I displaying the error message? Here. Class file read error. Okay. Whew. Last thing to try, and then I really do need to go. Even though I don't want to stop. Oh, and I also need to get rid of the to-do for the callback. I didn't actually write a to-do for the callback. Cool. Probably need a rebuild. I still see red. Oh, because you're stuck on building. Okay. Do we get data this time? We do. Congratulations. Okay, so we loaded a file, we got data. It's not styled, so the overall page itself I told to have overflow hidden because of the way that I do all of the structure with grids and stuff like that. But that's in the sample app. That has nothing to do with the component library itself. showing the field mapper dialog, it would probably have shown up somewhere below because again, it would be in line and it doesn't have the styles, but it did show up. I will go ahead and tell this thing to overflow auto so that we can scroll. Here it is, the field mapper dialog. Oh dear. The thing that didn't show up was my list of field mappings, which I was expecting at least the list to show up. So I have to figure out what's going on there. Yeah, and then it has the cancel and map fields. Cancel does make it stop showing the content, but it didn't make it hide the field mapper. This should have went away when I hit cancel. So I'll figure that out. But, you know, a whole bunch of stuff that we'll figure out next time. I'll probably end up figuring it out either after my meeting today or tomorrow. But my next stream is going to be on Friday. For anyone that's new and you don't know, on this stream, Fridays are community days. And community day is a day in which I focus on chat, on topics that you guys bring up, provided they are relevant to our stream's content. And we discuss them. If you have personal projects that you're working on, then we look at them closer. If you would like to look at them closely on stream, get some feedback on, and we just spend 2 hours doing community day stuff. And I also half work on the stream bot, the bot for the stream. I'm trying to remake it into a library that can be open sourced and that isn't as messy as my current bot's code base is. So anyway, that's Fridays. As always, you're welcome to join our Discord if you're already a part of way too many Discords. Completely understand. You don't need to join. It's pretty quiet, but we do have a lot of really cool people there that are willing to answer questions if you ask questions, if they have time, of course. And finally, I do post these VODs. So these VODs get automatically posted to Twitch as it is, but that disappears after a certain amount of time. But they get archived into YouTube now that I'm streaming to both Twitch and YouTube at the same time. So it used to be that I would post the videos, and that's why it says what it says. Sometimes about something about 24 hours from now, but I need to change that. But you can definitely check out any of the past videos from day one of this project, from day one of the side project that we did while I was working a different job, if you so feel like it. So that's available to you. But for now, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. We're going to read out to a friend of ours called Finite Singularity. His name is all one word, right? It's been a while since I've rated him. Yes, Finite Singularity. I spelled it correctly. He works on OBS plugins, does some amazing stuff in them. I think I still have the retro plugin somewhere around here. I don't know where I put it, but I was using it for the fun. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, see you on Friday if you show up. Otherwise, whenever you show up again. Ciao for now.